Okay, so I read the Daily Mail. Well, Mail Online. I do it to keep in touch with the interests and concerns of normal people. And to help my progress, I always check out the sidebar of shame. But imagine my surprise when the Daily Mail, or Daily Fail as some people call it, comes up with an article that really fits my interests. Here's the headline. Debbie.
Does vinyl actually sound better? As sales in Britain hit a record high, experts reveal how records really stack up against digital.
That's a long headline, but its length is justified by the statistic that vinyl sales in the UK have reached their highest point since 1990. 5.9 million vinyls bought in 2023, according to the British Phonographic Industry, or BPI. Reasons are suspected as Generation Z wanting to support their favourite artists and streaming fatigue. Come on, streaming fatigue is a thing. Maybe people don't know anymore that you can take your headphones off. Anyway, whatever the reasons, I'm not going to doubt the statistics. I might doubt the wisdom that's driving these statistics, but let's get back to core. Does vinyl sound better, according to Mail Online? I have to pick out some quotes. Debbie's gone off for a listening session with her Crosley, so I'll read them myself. For some music lovers, nothing will ever replace the warm crackle of a vinyl record. I corrected a typo there. Mail Online, you're welcome. There must be a word for perceiving a fault as a benefit. Apologia? Does that work? Here's another interesting quote. Hi-fi obsessives. Do they mean audiophiles? The next time I talk about audiophile issues, maybe I'll use hi-fi obsessives all the way through. Let's see what happens. So Mail Online talked to some experts to find out exactly what makes vinyl different from digital. So here's what you always wanted to know. Firstly, vinyl captures the full sound wave. That's a laugh. I'll accept that a pair of DPA 4011s, which I've used, can capture the full sound wave of an orchestra that's as big as you like, in full and in stereo. But then the signal is sent to a cutting lathe. The lathe makes its best attempt to transfer the full sound wave to a lacquer disc, which is then electroplated, stuff, then physically stamped onto a lump of raw PVC. You tell me how much of the full sound wave is left. Anyway, in comparison, digital audio captures the sound wave in parts. 1,411,200 parts per second, in fact, at CD quality, which is, according to theory, practice and experience, is enough to reconstruct a sound wave that is vastly more full than vinyl can ever manage. Okay, vinyl offers a more immersive listening experience. Let's consider streaming to be the digital alternative. I don't think I can criticise this point. To listen to your favourite album on vinyl, you, one, have to find it. A serious collector might have 1,000 albums or more. I hope they have a good system. My system with CDs in the past was to store them on shelves in order of most recently played. Then I could easily find something I hadn't listened to for a while. That was my reasoning anyway. 2. Take the record out of its sleeve without touching the playing surface. Figure out which is side 1 and put it on the turntable. Hi-fi obsessives might put a stabiliser weight in place. Possibly one with an integral spirit level, because who doesn't want one more thing to worry about? 3. Clean the dust from the record and from the stylus. Unless, of course, you're a hi-fi obsessive who doesn't have any dust in your house. 4. Play the record and enjoy the counterpoint of music, surface noise and scratches. 5. 20 minutes later, get up and turn the record over for side 2. You're immersed. Now, with streaming, unlock your phone, find your streaming app, search for the artist, album or track you want, click play and listen. Totally unimmersed. Actually, Mail Online says less engaged. And perhaps this is true. When you have to work for something, you often appreciate it more. Next, vinyl has physical restrictions to mastering. Digital has no restrictions to mastering. It might sound like a good thing to have no restrictions, but what happens is that with vinyl, mastering engineers have to be careful. They have to make the record sound as good as it can, and also make sure that it's playable on any record player. With digital, mastering engineers can do what they like, which is basically make it louder. Okay, it's the label bosses who are saying, make it louder. And a modern-day mastering engineer presumably gets satisfaction from making the track as loud as the label boss wants it, without it sounding too bad. This is most definitely where vinyl can sound better than digital. Next, lower dynamic range versus higher dynamic range. I'll leave noise out of this for today, but generally I'd say that a lower dynamic range isn't altogether a bad thing. I have a certain classical CD with a very high dynamic range, and it's almost impossible to set a volume where the quiet bits aren't too quiet or the loud bits aren't too loud. And if you're listening in your car, a lower dynamic range will help you listen over the engine and road noise. Come on, Elon, do something about road noise. And lastly, literally, on vinyl, the last track on the side sounds worse than the first. In fact, all the rest of them. This is because of the lower stylus to groove speed, laws of physics and all that. Digital audio doesn't suffer from this at all. Neither does cassette for that matter, but that's a story for another day. Mail Online goes on to explain how vinyl and digital work. Their explanation of vinyl is good enough, in a few words, to bring a Gen Zer reasonably up to speed. Their explanation of digital is fun, though, trying to replicate a smooth curve using only square boxes. Square box is in itself an oxymoron. Then they say that by compressing the information, you can fit in much more data in a digital format than you ever could on vinyl. This doesn't make sense. It's like saying you can fit much more fruit into an apple than a banana. But the explanation gets better. And remember, it's for people who don't have much or any technical knowledge already. Mail Online readers. You will be delighted that further on we learn that according to something called the Nyquist-Shannon theorem, then if the data rate is fast enough, you get a perfect output. Possibly that full sound wave they were talking about earlier, about vinyl. The article unfortunately gets a bit confusing talking about that dinosaur of a format, MP3, but we'll just ignore that. Particularly where it says that MP3 quality music ensures a perfect reproduction. They said that. What follows is a very good description of the drawbacks of vinyl. Not as good nor as thorough as my video on the subject, link in the description, but good enough to commend any thinking person on their decision to listen digitally. But there's more fun later on, the RIAA curve. I probably need to make a whole video on this, but I can summarise. If you try to cut an unequalised signal into the lacquer master, yes, you can do it, but low frequencies take up too much space, resulting in a short playing time. If you look at a spectrogram of music, here's one I made earlier, you'll see that music has more bass. That's just the way things are. So, if the bass is reduced before cutting and restored on playback, the duration can be longer and the sound will be as it was before the EQ, pretty much. The thing is that we don't hear the EQ. The signal gets EQ'd, then reverse EQ'd. All that we do notice is more turntable rumble because the bass is boosted on playback. But Mail Online goes on to compare RIAA EQ with the frequency response of the human ear. This is bollocks. Unless the EQ has been incorrectly designed, and it is a very simple circuit, or the components have degraded, the whole point is that what you hear is very close to the original, frequency rise. And then what you, yes you, individually hear on playback will be an approximation of the famous Fletcher-Munson equal loudness contours, depending on your hearing and how loud you set the volume. The Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA, has nothing to say on this. So, can we reach any kind of conclusion on this vinyl versus digital debate? At least according to parameters set by this article in Mail Online. Yes, we can. I might have been critical in places about this article, but I think that for the non-technical music lover, it puts things into a reasonable perspective, apart from the RIAA part, but we'll let that slide. And the ultimate conclusion on why some people prefer vinyl to digital, despite its many and varied shortcomings, according to Mail Online. Are you ready? According to Mail Online, it's the vibe. See you soon.